Welcome, Cara and Deme, to Inciting a Riot. I'm so happy for you both to be here today. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So today I am really excited because we are going to have sort of an open, free-form discussion about what it means to be a femme-presenting person in the online gaming community. If you out there in the podiosphere listening to this in your minivan or in the gym doing your squats or whatever aren't aware, there has been quite a bit of news this year, 2021, regarding femme presenting people both in games online, gaming spaces online, and in the culture of people that make the games, people that market the games, people that design the games, things like that. So I was looking around, and I have been longtime online buddies with Cara, who has been in gaming spaces like seriously hardcore for quite a while, and I thought, hey, let's have a chat. Let's have a chat about all this that's going on. So, Cara, welcome to Inciting a Riot.
Hi, Firelight.
Hi.
I've been listening to your shows forever, and this is really surreal. So, hello, Inciting a Riot listeners. Y'all are my people.
I'm so glad to have you here. And so for folks that don't know you, maybe just introduce a little bit about yourself. How'd you get started in gaming? What's your favorite game?
Oh my goodness. Okay, favorite game's easy. That's World of Warcraft because it basically absorbed my life. I've been playing forever. I got into gaming when I was very young. My parents, they were fairly young for parents, so they were gamers in a sense while I was little. So my dad picked up a Sega Genesis, and that was it. From there on out, it was all downhill or uphill, depending. But he also plopped his old computer in my room when I was about 4 years old before I could really even make words. So that's why I have a very distinctly weird way of typing, but I can also type very fast. Because it's been, the majority of my life has been in front of a screen at some point. Let's see, what else? Yeah. What else did you ask? It's a lot to think about. Like, who am I?
I hate when people. I got so comfortable asking people questions that when I started getting interviewed earlier this summer in preparation for my book coming out, suddenly people are asking me about me, and I'm like, I don't know what my birthday is.
Existential crisis.
Why are you asking me? How dare you, ma'am? No, thank you. Rude. Deme, right? Hi, welcome to Inciting a Riot. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in gaming? What's your favorite kind of game?
Well, much like Cara, I am a World of Warcraft fan. I play some other games as well. I've recently dipped into Final Fantasy 14 and I've gone back to The Sims because I used to play, I think it must have been Sims 2, let's say something like 15, 20 years ago, God knows when. And I kind of, very similar story to Cara in that I had a father who brought a computer home. And although I didn't have one in my bedroom and we never had a console at home when I was a kid, we did have an old PC and I did get to play Frogger. And then we had like Flight Simulator, which was amazing. And then when I got, World of Warcraft was the one that really sucked me in, and I've played games consistently since I started playing World of Warcraft in 2009. So it's been a while now. But I always had some kind of console. So I had a PlayStation 1 and then I had an Xbox something, and then I've had a PlayStation Portable and various bits and pieces. And now I have a 9-year-old who, I apologise if any of you hear in the podcast screaming because he's sitting behind me chatting away. But he's got his PC. We've got a Switch that we share, and I game as well. So, and we're probably going to end up with quite a few things in this house very soon for gaming on.
Well, thank you both for being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation. It's sort of an interesting community, certainly. From an outsider's perspective, it feels like a very insular community with its own language, its own jargon, its own history almost. But that's like a lot of niche communities, in certain religious communities, the pagan community, and there's big names that you think of as incredibly famous and big people that nobody else has ever heard of. There's decades of drama that you took years for you to figure out all the ins and outs of that nobody else knows about. So I think it's interesting to have this conversation. I want to first start off by defining some terms. So I want to ask, I guess, a softball question here. What makes someone a gamer?
Playing video games.
Yeah.
So do I count as a gamer if I play Pokemon Go?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah. A mobile phone is one of the reasons that gaming has exploded and become this huge business that it now is because of mobile games. And
they're tiny computers you get to put in your pocket.
Yeah. I always remember my maths teacher saying, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket when you're older. And now I'm like, really? Look what I can do on there.
I have one in my pocket. I have one on my wrist. Yeah. I have one.
Yeah. Mobile games have really kind of, all the people that play Candy Crush and they're like, oh no, I'm not a gamer. I'm like, well, yeah, you are.
Yeah, you sit in front of your phone and you literally play a game. That qualifies. But there is a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to gaming, and that makes people think, oh, all I play is Candy Crush. I'm not a gamer. Mm-hmm. And it makes you kind of put yourself down in a way. Like that's not a part of your life, or it's a flippant thing that you just do, on the side for fun, whatever. But if it provides joy and a little bit of, happiness in your life, that's good enough. If it keeps you coming back to it, then you're a gamer.
I certainly want to talk about gatekeeping and gatekeeping the idea of being a gamer, because I feel like that's sort of the crux of a lot of the problems, at least as I understand them, is this deciding of what makes someone a gamer, what makes someone a real gamer. Right. And, I want to dig into that because there's the flip side of the aspirational of somebody that, almost like me, that sort of admires the culture of gamers, has a lot of friends who are gamers, but it's just like, oh, I only play, Genshin Impact, or I only play Pokemon Go or something like that. I'm not a gamer. But the rest of that sentence is, but I'd love to be if I had the time to be. But then there's the other side of it that's like the word gamer is a bad word. Like, oh, a gamer. You're a gamer. Like, yes. When you hear about gaming being a professional sport and the kinds of money that certain kinds of gamers make and things like that. So maybe talk to me a little bit about sort of the dual nature of the term and how it's gatekept in two different directions.
I just got real distracted at little ears coming in the corner of your screen. So, do you have a kitty there, Firelight?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Who's that?
Yeah, it's just Bella.
Oh, hi, kitty.
Hi, Bella. So cute.
She wants to be part. I'm gatekeeping her out of being a podcaster.
So let me think. There's a good comparison you can make between the word gamer and, say, a football player or anyone who plays a professional sport. There are people who play games professionally, and it's because they're really, really good at it, right? But there's also people who play football because they're really, really good at it. But then there's people who really enjoy watching it, or they play it with their friends, but they might not be the best at it, but they have fun. And I think the word gamer has been applied to the professional people for a really long time in a way to gatekeep out all the quote unquote casual gamers and look down on them. And obviously, there's way more people who play games casually than there are the top of the top, people who are just super good at video games and can win money because they're so good at it. People sometimes get into gaming thinking, oh, I'm going to be really good at this. I'm going to do this professionally. I'm going to make all my money, make a living out of this. And they get let down real quick because it is such a limited portion of the population that can actually break into that.
Deme, do you have any thoughts on sort of the gatekeeping of the term gamer, and both how it's being gatekept in a positive way and a negative way?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, you could only be a gamer if you were not female presenting. It was very much a, in quotation marks, boys' world. And it was, I think it wasn't, I mean, I'm ancient. So, 20 years ago when I was at university, it was really cool if you were a girl gamer. It suddenly became like this really cool thing. And I started playing Tekken because there were hot boys playing Tekken, and suddenly I was this cool girl, and that got me in with them, but I was never allowed to be called a gamer because I wasn't serious enough, and I didn't, I wasn't good enough to be classed as a gamer. Well, I was still playing the game, if they can run around and kick, like Cara said, if they can kick a football around, I know all footballs are different shapes this side of the pond, but, if they're kicking footballs around in the park and they call themselves a football player, then why can I not be a gamer? So there's that side of it on the kind of the gender side, but also there is this thing of like the top 1% who are, and they are phenomenal. When you particularly for like Cara and my experience in World of Warcraft, there are people making serious amounts of money who are in the top 1% of players. And they are, they shape the way our game is created and how we enjoy it as well, because there's a lot of, it cascades down. So the things that they decide and the way that they play cascades down to the rest of us, and it changes the way expectations are. And then there's a gatekeeping effect where if you don't follow what they say, you're not allowed to do X, Y, Z. So there's still elements of it in there in so many different ways. But then there's also the other side of that in those of us that are more, in quotation marks, casual. We don't really care about that, and we find other ways to enjoy these games and to create communities that aren't chasing that 1%, because we realise that to be that 1%, that's what they do 30 to 40 hours a week. It is their actual job. And for the rest of us that go out and do other things to earn our finances, we don't have the time to, well, we do have the time, but we probably wouldn't be able to sleep or eat or have a life outside of it if we worked full time and then played a game at that level full time. It's gatekeeping is very real. It still exists. I think now people are aware of it. It's changing, but it's very slow. And it exists on the player side, in society, like when you're talking to other people about it, and in the companies, which is what we've seen in Blizzard. So it's a very real thing, unfortunately.
I certainly want to touch on that, but I think while we're still talking about sort of the idea of the gamer, the concept of being a gamer, I want to talk about the stereotype of a gamer for a second here, because I feel like it's still one of those areas of culture that just doesn't have a lot of good stereotypes about it. I mean, when you say, oh, they're a gamer, like, there's the bro with his friends that plays Madden, and there's that, but those guys they don't tend to get called gamers. It's not like, oh, he's really into football games. when you call someone a gamer, immediately like the words basement come into the conversation. Like, oh, it's just some very large, pimply faced man in a basement somewhere. And it's just all of these really harshly intended stereotypes. And there's a lot of body shaming in it, and a lot of fat shaming, and a lot of stereotypes that go, there's layers here to the word gamer. So what does it take for you two to sort of proudly identify with the word gamer? What does it feel like to tell people you're a gamer? Can we talk about sort of the layers of that word?
I don't think a lot of people understand it anymore. If I explain to my IRL, like offline friends, that I play computer games, a lot of the time it goes over their head. They don't really understand it. But the stereotype of it's the large dude in his mum's basement, isn't it? Eating pizza. It's the South Park character
from South Park.
Yeah. I was just going to say that South Park episode.
It's the South Park episode, and that's what everybody thinks of when they think of a gamer. And and it's in South Park because that's what people thought of before South Park did it anyway. So people still have that vision of that's what gamers look like. And there are wonderful people who look like that. And it doesn't take anything away from them because they, look like that. But then there are other people in gaming who don't look like that. There are some crazy, beautiful streaming people who stream these computer games, and you would not believe how crazy beautiful they are, and they're not that fitting that stereotype. There are also a lot, particularly in the streaming and gaming space now, there are a lot of gamers who have earned their way through their gaming to make it pay for their living. They might not be earning squillions, but they're certainly earning enough money not to do anything else. And they will do workout streams. And there's quite a few of them now that will do a workout stream in the morning and a gaming stream in the afternoon. And they're buff. They're good look. They are taking care of their bodies. And there's a lot of conversations around when you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours because you're doing some mammoth task in your game with your team or whatever, to get up and stretch and do some squats or, whatever it might be, so that your things like DVT aren't becoming an issue for you. So I think that stereotype of how we as gamers look and live, I think there's a lot around our lifestyle, is changing. And I think people are realizing that we're not, all sitting in basements. There's nothing wrong if you sit in a basement. If I had a basement, I probably would sit in it because it would be bigger than this office that I'm in.
It's cool down there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's big and the acoustics are pretty good usually.
And when you've got banks of equipment and bright lights and stuff, it gets hot, man. You need somewhere cool to go and sit. Yeah. So,
I do think it's interesting that if we sacrifice 8 hours of our day to sit in front of a computer and look at spreadsheets, that's called a job. But if we sacrifice 8 hours of our day to do a game that gives us pleasure, and maybe even that we earn money from, but if it just gives us pleasure, that's a bad thing for some reason, because it wasn't outside or because I don't know. I don't really understand that.
Yeah,
say that again?
I said it's looked down upon to play a game. And when you think of the label of gamer, if you read a lot of books and that's like your primary form of entertainment, is there a label for that? Are you a booker? Or are you a reader? Right? But
that's intelligently acceptable, isn't it? You're deemed to be increasing your knowledge by reading books. It's like, well,
right. And same with movies or watching TV.
Well, but it's interesting because Demi just brought up a point where she kept using the word streamer. Oh, they stream in the morning and then they stream in the evening. And the thing is what I'm starting to hear from YouTube and from other sources is people are saying, come watch my stream. Like, we aren't saying I'm not a gamer anymore. I'm a streamer.
I think
Is that are people changing these terms, or am I misunderstanding?
Well, streamers specifically create content for other people to watch.
Correct.
So
right.
they are, and the way I look at a streamer, they play a game, but they are actually an entertainer, because when you're talking to people on a stream, you're actually hosting a whole community, and you might do a podcast live on stream, and you're then having to manage your tech for your stream, your interview, your guests, your mics, your chat room, all of it, your audience, everything.
No, you make a good point.
I need to be heavily edited. Thank you.
You're the host of your own party when you're streaming.
Yeah.
You have to do everything.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, that's what it's like. It's like hosting your own party.
But you're the one that's sitting in front of your screen with your one controller playing your game, and everybody is behind you watching your stream, and like backseat driving, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's slightly different to just being, if you say I'm a gamer, and I keep using air quotes, I don't know why, but if you say I'm a gamer, I think a lot of people still tie that into being stuck in front of your console as well, like on your sofa and eating Cheetos or what's-its that we call them in the UK and whatnot, and not doing anything active. Whereas, so it's like streaming is like another layer. It's like any kind of content creation. You've got a load of stuff that people don't see behind the scenes that you do first. So it's almost like an added, it's like an added level of fluff that you have to work through to enjoy the game, I suppose.
Sure.
But you can be a gamer without being a streamer. But and
you can be a streamer without being a gamer.
I suppose I'm asking that because it feels like there's a nuance between the intention of the word. And what I mean by that is I almost feel like there are people that pick up a game so that they can become a streamer.
Oh, yeah.
Is that... I mean, like, I feel like there's a positive association with the idea of becoming a paid streamer and seeing that as sort of a legitimate, smiled upon possible profession, or at least an approved hobby, societally approved hobby. Whereas if I'm just a gamer and nobody's watching me do it, that's sad somehow.
Well, I have a very simple way to put that. It's about money.
Yeah.
If you're making money from your hobby, it's acceptable. And if you're good enough at streaming, you can make money. Just if you have to be either in the right place at the right time, or you have to work really, really, really hard, very consistently to get an audience who is willing to give you their money.
Yep.
Demi, you brought up the word that brought us all together today. So I do want to talk about the Blizzard lawsuit. I'm an outsider to the community. I'm an outsider to World of Warcraft. I'm certainly an outsider to Blizzard games, generally speaking, but neither of you are. You have been in both of these communities for a very long time. So in your own words, could you all tell us a little bit about Blizzard, the company, about the lawsuit as you understand it, and about your personal sort of reactions to the allegations and to the general environment itself?
Well, when it comes to Blizzard, they were always seen as the good guys in gaming. They propped themselves up to be not part of the bro culture. They have a statue outside of their headquarters that lists 8 different goals, I guess, of their company. Things like every voice matters. And so when this lawsuit came out, filed by the state of California, I think Fair Housing and Labor, it was a big letdown, to everybody who plays video games, especially women and other marginalized people whose voices are normally not heard in typical gaming communities, who have been heard in the player base community. It was a very it's hard to talk about because the lawsuit itself basically said there's a culture in the Blizzard offices that is unfair, harmful, and even to the point of someone dying by suicide because it was so bad. And to hear that or to read that is just, it's heartbreaking, especially when you think, oh, everything's fine. It's almost like being, having one of your friends say, oh, I'm in an abusive relationship, and you had no idea because they were hiding it so well to cover their partner who was abusing them. So for me, it's been a lot of emotional reaction, but also I have friends who work at Blizzard who, of course, I'm concerned about, but I also don't want them to lose their job over. So there's been this fine line as a Blizzard gamer, not so much the employees, but on the outside, where we have to make a decision. Does it feel bad enough when we log into the games? For personally, do we feel bad when we do this to quit all Blizzard games, to say, I'm not having anything to do with that, I'm not giving them my money at all anymore? Or do we say, I want to stay and help make change in the community? Because I am one of those people that if I were in the company, I would have probably been affected by these awful things. That was a really rambly answer.
So the conversation that, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, you said that Blizzard had sort of put themselves forward as the kinder, gentler gaming company, so to speak. I mean, that they had a set of ethics that they wanted to abide by, and they wanted to create a safe space for people that just wanted to enjoy games. But it came out earlier this year, and I think the word that I saw the most in articles was that it's this frat boy culture, this stereotypical frat boy culture. It's this very Cro-Magnon alpha male, cis het white male culture, and it is excessively so. Does this surprise either of you? And by the vociferous nodding, I'm assuming it doesn't. But did the lawsuit come out of left field for either of you?
I think we held them to a higher standard. We believed what they said, that they felt that every voice mattered. You know, the values that they have on that orc statue outside their building. You know, we believed them when they said they stood by those values, and it felt like a huge betrayal. You know, we've been let down by them, and not just the people that were there and in charge in the last 3 years, but I mean, this lawsuit looks back over 10 years worth of allegations and history. You know, it's not something that's just been happening in the last 3 years, in the last 5 years. It goes back a long way, back to the people who founded the company, really. And, you know, a lot of them came out on Twitter with statements essentially trying to distance themselves from it and saying, oh, we didn't know any of this was happening. Had we known about it, we would have put a stop to it, blah, 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 blah. And employees that have worked with them have come forward and said, I told you this was happening and you didn't stop it. So I think we knew that this happened at some level in most corporate environments. In most companies, this sort, there are some vestiges. I'll start again. Some vestiges of this kind of behaviour. But to have it at that level, the frat boy thing, like coming from a British perspective, we don't like have frats and sororities here, but we certainly have like clubs that are exclusively male, that where you can expect a very similar sort of behaviour. But the idea that there were a couple of things that stood out to me, and I read the lawsuit filing. These things like cube crawls, where they would get drunk in the office and then go across, crawl through the cubes and rate the women or ask them out. And one guy said to some girl he didn't like her because she wouldn't give him a blowjob. And you just think, how were they able to get away with it for so long? And I've had instances at work where I've had people say abhorrent things to me, and I've had instances outside of work where men have done obnoxious things. But if somebody had said something like that to me at work, yeah, damn right, I would have reported it, and I would have expected action to be taken. So you wonder how it got to that level, and
where's the breakdown?
Yeah, how was it able to continue for so long? And it was just, I think, a lot of us, and certainly from my side and my co-host on our podcast, we said we can't do our podcast like this. We can't talk about this company and this game that we love so much and be positive about it when this is what it's been built on.
When so many people are hurting.
Yeah. I think now we've heard so much more from the employees themselves, and they've come forward and they are fighting tooth and nail to get their culture changed, to get things happening. And one of the ways to support them is to keep doing what we've been doing, which is to play the games and to, create the content and all the rest of it. And those are very personal decisions. Like Cara said, some people can't physically log into the game. It's too painful for them. And that is absolutely fine. Other people have to play the game to pay their bills. If they're a World of Warcraft or an Overwatch or a Hearthstone or whatever other game, Call of Duty, if they make their money streaming that game or making content for that game on YouTube, they have to keep going or they're not going to pay their bills. And that's also another side of it. So those people, as alongside the employees that have had to deal with this, it's the content creators and the people that make that content that are tied in to a franchise that they now don't necessarily want to be tied into anymore because they're really upset and really angry and don't want to give this company any more money or any more advertising, because that's what it essentially is. But they haven't got anywhere else to go yet. They're trying to find a way out that feels better for them, like a lot of the employees are. And I'm lucky enough that I'm not in that boat, but I know people who are in that boat. And I think for me personally, it comes back to that huge sense of betrayal. We held them to a higher standard and they let us down on every front, basically.